Cut the rope at last second rancher saved a girl from being hanged, vertical bar cowboy love stories. The desert wind moved slowly across the wide-open land, carrying dust and heat through the quiet town of Dry Creek. Wooden buildings stood in long rows, their paint faded by years of sun and storms. Horses waited near hitching posts, and townsfolk gathered in uneasy silence near the old gallows at the edge of the main street. Something heavy filled the air that day. Even the birds stayed away. On the raised platform stood a young woman with her hands tied in front of her. Her dark hair moved gently in the wind, and her eyes stayed calm despite the fear around her. A rope hung from the beam above her head, swaying slightly. People whispered among themselves, but none stepped forward. The sheriff cleared his throat and unrolled a paper. His voice sounded firm, but there was tension behind it. "This woman is accused of stealing restricted technology from a trade caravan," he announced. "She resisted arrest and brought danger to this town." Some people nodded, but others looked unsure. The story had spread quickly, but few had seen real proof. Still, fear often spoke louder than truth in small frontier towns. The woman did not argue. She only watched the crowd carefully, as if searching for someone. Her name was Lyra, though few people knew it. To most of the town, she was just an outsider who arrived suddenly and caused trouble. Far beyond the town, across miles of dry plains and red rock hills, a lone rider moved toward Dry Creek. Caleb rode at a steady pace, his long coat moving with the rhythm of his horse. He was a rancher who lived far from town, raising strong desert cattle and avoiding unnecessary contact with people. Caleb preferred quiet. The land spoke more honestly than most men. Earlier that morning, he had met a traveler who mentioned the hanging. The traveler said the town planned to execute a young woman accused of dangerous crimes. Something about the story did not sit right with Caleb. Frontier justice could be harsh, but hanging someone without clear proof felt wrong. He had not planned to get involved, but as he rode closer, a feeling grew stronger inside him, a quiet voice telling him to see the truth with his own eyes. Back at the gallows, the sheriff finished reading the charges. The rope was lowered slowly toward Lyra's neck. A few people turned away, unable to watch. Lyra lifted her chin slightly. Fear flickered in her eyes, but she did not beg. She seemed more disappointed than afraid, as if she had expected better from people. Just then, the sound of approaching hooves broke the silence. Everyone turned to town, dust rising behind him. He slowed his horse as he approached the crowd, his gaze moving carefully over the scene. He noticed details others ignored, the nervous glances between certain men, the way strangers stood near the edges watching too closely. He dismounted calmly. "Hold on," he said, his voice steady but firm. "This is official business. Stand back." Caleb stepped forward, keeping his hands visible to avoid provoking anyone. "What proof do you have?" he asked. "Seems like a fast decision." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some people looked relieved that someone questioned the process. The sheriff's jaw tightened. "We found her near stolen goods. That is enough." Caleb looked at Lyra. Up close, he noticed marks on her wrists, not the rough cuts of someone resisting arrest, but smooth burns like restraints from advanced technology. That did not match the sheriff's story. Lyra met his gaze. She said nothing, but something in her eyes spoke clearly. She was not guilty. The sheriff signaled to continue. The rope was placed around her neck. Time felt slow. Caleb's thoughts moved quickly. He was not a hero, and he did not enjoy trouble. But walking away would mean accepting something that felt deeply wrong. The executioner reached for the lever. Caleb moved. In one smooth motion, he stepped onto the platform, pulled a knife from his belt, and sliced through the rope before the lever could be pulled. Gasps filled the air. The rope fell uselessly to the ground. "What are you doing?" the sheriff shouted. Caleb stood between Lyra and the crowd. "I'm stopping a mistake." Hands moved toward weapons. The tension became sharp and dangerous. "You're interfering with justice," the sheriff warned. "Maybe," Caleb replied quietly. "Or maybe I'm preventing murder." For a moment, no one moved. The crowd looked uncertain, unsure whether to support the sheriff or question him. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed from the hills, a faint mechanical hum that did not belong to this simple town. Caleb noticed several strangers step back nervously. They exchanged quick signals, almost invisible to others. Something bigger was happening. Caleb turned back to Lyra and cut her bindings. She rubbed her wrists slowly, watching him with surprise. "You don't even know me," she said softly. "No," he replied. "But I know when something feels wrong." The sheriff raised his rifle slightly. "You leave now, rancher, and maybe I forget this." "Not without her." Before anyone could react further, Caleb guided Lyra toward his horse. The crowd hesitated, confused by the sudden change. They mounted quickly. As they rode out of town, dust rising behind them, Caleb sensed eyes watching from the cliffs. Hidden figures activated small devices that blinked with cold blue light. One of them spoke quietly into a communicator. "Target has escaped. Tracking begins now." Caleb and Lyra rode toward the open desert, unaware that their journey had just begun, and that the rope he cut had connected him to a story far larger than either of them imagined. The wind carried them away from Dry Creek toward danger, truth, and a future neither had expected. The desert stretched endlessly ahead of them, glowing gold under the late afternoon sun. Caleb rode in silence, guiding his horse through familiar paths that only someone who lived with the land could understand. Behind him, the town of Dry Creek slowly disappeared into the distance. Lyra sat quietly on the horse behind him, holding lightly to the saddle. She looked back once, her eyes thoughtful but calm. The wind carried away the last sounds of the town, leaving only the steady rhythm of hooves against dry earth. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Caleb was used to silence. Living alone on a remote ranch had taught him that not every moment needed words, but he could feel questions building between them. Finally, Lyra spoke. "You changed your life today," she said softly. Caleb did not turn around. Maybe. Or maybe I just did what needed doing. She watched the horizon. Most people don't. The land grew rougher as they moved toward the canyon paths. Red rock formations rose around them like silent guardians. Caleb chose routes that avoided open areas, instinct guiding him away from danger. He had noticed strange watchers near the cliffs back in town. That bothered him more than the sheriff's anger. After a while, they reached a narrow pass leading into a hidden valley. A small ranch appeared between natural stone walls, wooden fences, a simple cabin, and a wide water trough reflecting the sky. It was quiet and peaceful, far from the noise of towns and trouble. "This is home," Caleb said. Lyra slid down from the horse slowly, her eyes scanning everything carefully. She moved like someone trained to observe, noticing details others would miss. Caleb led the horse toward the stable and removed the saddle. He moved with calm efficiency, his actions simple and practiced. After tying the horse, he turned toward her. "You can stay here for now," he said. "Rest. No one comes this far unless they know the way." She nodded, though tension remained in her shoulders. Inside the cabin, the air smelled faintly of wood and desert herbs. The furniture was simple but clean. Caleb placed a cup of water in front of her and began preparing food without asking questions. Lyra watched him carefully.
"You weren't afraid?"
He shrugged. "Of you? Of what might come because of me?" He paused slightly but continued cooking. "Fear doesn't help much. Preparation does." She almost smiled. As evening fell, warm light filled the cabin. The desert cooled quickly after sunset, and stars appeared one by one across the sky. They ate quietly at first, but slowly conversation grew easier. "My name is Lyra," she said at last. "Caleb." She studied him. "You didn't ask my story?" "I figured you'd tell me when ready." She leaned back slightly, surprised by his patience. Many people demanded answers, but he waited calmly. After a long silence, she spoke again. "The charges against me weren't real," she said. "I didn't steal anything." "I guessed," Caleb replied. She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "There are people looking for something hidden on this world. Something old. Older than the towns, older than the trade routes." Caleb listened without interrupting. "They needed me removed," she continued. "The hanging wasn't justice. It was a way to make me disappear quietly." Outside, a distant rumble echoed faintly across the desert, like thunder but more mechanical. Caleb stood and stepped outside, scanning the sky. A faint light moved far above, too steady to be a star. He returned inside, his expression serious. "You're being hunted." Caleb sat down again. "Then you'll need to tell me everything." Lyra reached into her coat slowly and removed a small device. It was smooth and metallic, glowing faintly with blue light. When she touched it, a projection appeared above the table, a map filled with stars and lines. Caleb stared quietly. He had seen off-world technology before, but nothing like this. "This is a locator," she explained. "It shows energy signatures from ancient sources. One of them is buried near Dry Creek." "The town?" he asked. She nodded. "Something powerful is hidden beneath it. Not a weapon. At least not meant to be. But in the wrong hands, it could change entire environments, maybe even control weather patterns." Jesus saving people, etc. That explained the strange outsiders watching the execution. "Why you?" he asked. She hesitated again, as if deciding how much to reveal. "Because I was chosen to protect it." Silence filled the room. Outside, the wind picked up, whispering against the cabin walls. For the first time since arriving, Lyra allowed herself to relax slightly. She removed her coat and sat closer to the fire. "You didn't have to help me," she said quietly. "Most people would have walked away." Maybe. But leaving someone alone like that didn't feel right. A small moment of understanding passed between them. Simple, honest, and unspoken. As night deepened, the peaceful ranch felt almost safe. But far beyond the cliffs, faint red lights moved through the sky. Lyra suddenly stiffened. She stepped outside quickly, her eyes scanning the horizon. "They found us," she whispered. Caleb followed her gaze. Distant shapes moved slowly along the ridge, small drones searching carefully. His peaceful life had already changed. He turned toward her calmly. "Then we prepare." Lyra looked at him, surprised again by his steady courage. He wasn't reckless or loud like the heroes from stories. He was quiet, grounded, the kind of person who stood firm when others ran. And for the first time since her capture, she felt something close to hope. The wind moved around them, carrying the smell of desert and distant danger. Together they stood outside the cabin, watching the approaching lights, knowing that whatever came next would bind their paths even closer. The night air felt colder than usual, as Caleb and Lyra stood outside the cabin, watching the distant lights moving across the ridge. The small flying shapes moved slowly but with purpose, scanning the land below like hunters searching for prey. Caleb crossed his arms and studied their movement carefully. He had lived in the desert long enough to understand patterns, how storms moved, how animals tracked, and how danger often came quietly before striking. "These aren't from the town," he said. "No," Lyra replied softly. "They belong to the syndicate." The word hung heavy between them. Caleb nodded once. "Then we don't wait for them to reach us." He moved quickly, leading her toward the barn behind the cabin. Inside were tools, ropes, saddles, and equipment collected over years of ranch work. But hidden among the ordinary items were small mechanical devices Caleb had built himself, motion alarms made from scrap metal and simple energy cells, designed to warn him of predators or thieves. "You plan for trouble," Lyra said. "Living alone teaches you to expect it," he answered. Together they worked without wasting time. Caleb set traps along narrow paths leading into the valley. Ropes hidden beneath sand, metal pieces positioned to create noise if disturbed, and small mirrors angled to reflect light signals toward the cabin. Lyra watched with interest. "You fight differently than people with advanced weapons." He smiled slightly. "Land is my advantage." She activated a small handheld device that projected a faint shield around the cabin entrance. Not strong enough to stop heavy attacks, but enough to delay intruders. Hours passed slowly. A faint buzzing filled the air, growing louder as the machines moved into the valley. Red scanning lights swept across rocks and fences. Caleb remained calm. He leaned against the wall, rifle ready but pointed downward. He did not want to fight, but he would not run. Suddenly one of the traps triggered. A loud metal clang echoed through the valley. The drones shifted direction immediately, moving toward the noise. "Good," Caleb whispered. "Let them chase shadows." But behind the drones came something worse. A low hovering vehicle sliding silently over the ridge. Its surface reflected moonlight, sleek and unfamiliar. Several figures jumped down, wearing dark suits with glowing symbols. "They're faster than expected," Lyra said quietly. "Can you hide your signal?" "I can reduce it, not remove it." "That'll have to do." They moved toward the horses, preparing to leave before the valley became a trap. Caleb mounted quickly and helped Lyra climb behind him. He knew paths through the canyon that even experienced trackers would struggle to follow. As they rode out through a narrow exit, a beam of light flashed behind them. One of the mercenaries had spotted movement. "Go," Lyra said. Caleb urged the horse forward, guiding it through twisting rock passages. The sound of engines echoed behind them as the pursuers followed. Dust rose into the air, turning the moonlight hazy. Caleb leaned low, steering carefully to avoid loose stones. Lyra turned slightly and activated her device, releasing a burst of bright light that confused the drones for a moment. The machines wavered, scanning wildly. "That won't last long," she warned. Caleb nodded. He led them toward a narrow canyon that curved sharply around large rock formations. At a certain point, he pulled a rope tied earlier between two hidden posts. A pile of loose stones collapsed behind them, blocking the path temporarily. The pursuing vehicle slowed, forced to find another route. They continued riding until the sounds behind them faded into distant echoes. Finally, Caleb slowed the horse near a high cliff overlooking the desert. Both of them breathed heavily, feeling the weight of what had just happened. "You fight well," Lyra said quietly. "I survive," he replied. She looked at him thoughtfully. "Most people would have left me when they realized the danger. Leaving wouldn't change who I am." For a moment, silence surrounded them again, peaceful despite everything. Then Lyra spoke more seriously. "There's something you need to know," she said. "I didn't tell you everything before. The device hidden beneath Dry Creek. It's part of an ancient alien network. It was designed to restore dying worlds, to heal ecosystems damaged by war or disaster. But if someone reprograms it, they could control climate, destroy crops, or force entire populations to move. The Syndicate wants control over frontier planets," she continued. "They create chaos, then offer solutions. Power through fear. And the town almost handed them what they wanted. Yes." They sat quietly for a while, watching the stars. "Why stay here?" Caleb asked finally. "Why not leave the planet entirely?" "I tried," she admitted, "but the device cannot be moved safely. Someone has to protect it." He thought about his quiet ranch, his peaceful routines. Life had been simple before she arrived. Now everything felt different, but when he looked at her, tired but determined, strong despite everything, he understood his choice had already been made. "We go back," he said. Her eyes widened slightly. "Back to Dry Creek? Running won't end this." She studied him carefully, searching for doubt. She found none. For the first time since meeting him, she smiled fully, not from relief but from trust. Together they turned the horse toward the distant lights of the town. The desert wind moved around them as dawn slowly approached, carrying both danger and hope. Neither of them knew what waited beneath Dry Creek, but they would face it together. The desert was quiet that morning, but the wind carried tension. Caleb guided his horse along the hidden canyon paths, careful to avoid any trackers. Behind him, Lyra sat alert, her fingers brushing over the small device she held. It glowed faintly, projecting holographic maps of the town and the energy source below. "You think the Syndicate is ready for this?" Caleb asked quietly. "They will be," Lyra replied. "And they will expect me alone. That's why I need you." Instead, he gave her a steady glance, letting her know he understood. They had ridden together through the night, survived traps and drones, and now the final confrontation waited beneath the streets of Dry Creek. As they approached the town, it looked peaceful, almost normal. Children played near the outskirts, unaware of the danger hidden below. Merchants arranged their stalls, and the sheriff patrolled slowly, unaware of the threat Caleb and Lyra carried. Caleb dismounted, leading the horse into the shadows of an alley. Lyra followed, silent, alert, every movement cautious. Their plan was simple: avoid the main streets, reach the underground chamber, secure the device, and leave before anyone noticed. The entrance was hidden beneath an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. Caleb lifted a loose metal panel, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Lyra checked her device again, confirming the energy signatures were still active. "Stay close," she whispered. He nodded, stepping down first. The walls of the tunnel were rough, carved from rock and reinforced with alien technology that glimmered faintly in blue light. Caleb kept his hand near his side, fingers brushing the grip of his rifle, though he preferred relying on instincts rather than weapons. A few meters in, the tunnel widened into a chamber filled with strange machinery. Blue and silver panels hummed softly, and the air smelled faintly metallic. Energy pulses ran across the walls, marking the pathways of an ancient alien system. "That's it," Lyra said, pointing to a large pedestal in the center. A glowing device rested atop it, pulsing gently as if alive. Caleb stepped closer. The room was silent, too quiet. He could feel danger approaching. Then the doors at the far end of the chamber opened with a hiss. Dark silhouettes entered, moving quickly and silently. Members of the Syndicate, armed with advanced weapons and armor that glimmered in the faint light. Lyra took a step forward. "We can't let them touch it." Caleb glanced at her, noticing her calm determination. "Then we stop them." The first figure stepped forward, holding a weapon that hummed with energy. "Step aside, and no one will be hurt," the leader said. "The device belongs to us." It belongs to no one who wants to destroy or control people. Lyra activated a shield from her device, creating a faint barrier around the pedestal. Energy arcs flashed across it, and the air crackled. The leader stepped closer, sneering. "You think a few tricks and gadgets can stop us?" he asked. Caleb didn't answer. He ran forward, using the natural unevenness of the chamber to dodge a blast of energy. The floor beneath the attacker shifted slightly, triggering a trap Caleb had noticed while entering, loose stones that sent one of the mercenaries stumbling. Lyra focused on the device, her hands moving over controls that no ordinary human could understand. She reprogrammed the energy flow, creating a feedback loop that made the leader pause, unsure what was happening. Caleb took advantage of the hesitation, using instinct and speed to push another mercenary aside, creating space. His eyes never left Lyra, ensuring she could work safely. The fight was tense but careful. Caleb relied on movement and wit, avoiding unnecessary violence while keeping the syndicate off balance. Lyra manipulated the device, redirecting energy to create small, controlled bursts that forced the intruders back. Minutes stretched like hours. Sweat dripped down Caleb's face, but he stayed focused. He could see the determination in Lyra, calm, precise, and confident. Finally, the leader realized he could not overpower them. He activated a small signal device calling for reinforcements. Lyra looked at Caleb. "We need to finish this before more arrive." Caleb nodded. "Let's end it." With careful timing, Lyra released the device's energy through the chamber floor. Blue light spread across the walls, and a pulse knocked the weapons from the intruders' hands. The energy was controlled. It disabled their equipment without harming anyone. The syndicate members stumbled, disoriented and unable to move effectively. Caleb guided them toward the exit, ensuring no one was hurt more than necessary. The leader glared at them, realizing he had lost. He retreated, vowing silently that this wasn't over. Caleb turned to Lyra. "Is it safe?" "For now. It cannot be activated by anyone else." A wave of relief passed between them. The tension melted slightly, replaced by quiet exhaustion. They walked together out of the chamber, emerging into the bright morning sun. The town looked normal again, unaware of the events that had unfolded beneath their feet. Caleb led the horse to a shaded alley. Lyra climbed on behind him, and for the first time they rode together freely, the danger behind them for now. As they moved through the desert outside Dry Creek, Lyra reached forward, placing a hand lightly on Caleb's shoulder. He glanced back at her. "You saved me," she said softly. "I just did what I had to," he replied. Her eyes shone with gratitude, but there was something more, a connection born from trust and shared survival. The canyon walls stretched around them, red and golden in the morning sun. Caleb guided the horse over familiar paths, moving toward his ranch. The journey was quiet, but not empty. Words were not necessary. The bond between them had grown stronger than any danger or threat. At the ranch they dismounted. Caleb led the horse to the stable while Lyra looked around, noticing the simplicity and peace of the place. "This is different from the towns," she said. "Different is good," Caleb replied. They walked toward the cabin, the desert wind gentle now, carrying the smell of earth and dry grass. Caleb opened the door, inviting her in. For a moment, silence enveloped them, broken only by the distant calls of birds. Then Lyra turned to him. "Thank you," she said. "For everything. For not leaving me." Caleb shrugged lightly, though a small smile appeared. "We did it together." She smiled back, and in that moment, the fear and danger melted away. They had survived not because of power or weapons, but because of courage, trust, and the willingness to stand together. Later, they sat on the porch of the cabin, watching the sun rise fully over the desert. The sky glowed gold and orange, reflecting off the rocks and sand. "Will they come back?" Lyra asked quietly. "Maybe," Caleb said. "But we're ready. And if they do, we'll face them together." She leaned slightly against him, feeling safe for the first time in a long while. He placed a hand gently on hers, not needing to speak. Words were unnecessary. The connection was stronger than words could describe. They watched the horizon, knowing that the desert would always be their protector. The device was safe, the syndicate defeated for now, and the bond between them had grown into something neither expected but both cherished. As the sun climbed higher, Caleb and Lyra mounted the horse together, riding slowly across the open desert. Dust rose behind them in soft clouds, marking their journey forward. They did not need to speak. Each knew the other would be there, through danger, uncertainty, and the endless expanse of the frontier. The ranch lay ahead, the desert stretched behind them, and for the first time since the rope had been cut in Dry Creek, everything felt possible. Caleb guided the horse along a high ridge, looking down over valleys and canyons, knowing that no matter what came next, they would face it together. Lyra tightened her grip gently, not in fear but in trust. The danger had passed, the world felt quiet, and the moment belonged to them. The sun painted the desert in gold as they rode on, two figures moving forward, hearts steady and lives forever changed by a single rope cut at the last second.